I ask unanimous consent the call of quorum be terminated.
Without objection.
Mr. President, I ask unanimous consent the Senate proceed to executive session to consider the following nominations. Count number 102, 120, 174, 175, 176, 177, 178, 179, 180, 181, 186, 187, 188, 189, 190, 191, 192, 193, 195, 198, 199, 200, 201, 202, 203, 204, 205, 206, 207, 208, 209, 210, 211, 212, 213, 214, 215, 216, 217, 218, 219, 220, 221, 222, 223, 224, 225, 227, 228, 229, 233, 234, 235, 236, 237, 238, 239, 240, 241, 242, 243, 244, 245, 246, 247. And nominations placed on the Secretary's desk in the Air Force, Army, Coast Guard, Foreign Service, and Navy. That the nominations be confirmed en bloc. Motion reconsider be considered made and laid on the table with no intervening action or debate. That no further motions be in order to any of the nominations. Any statements related to the nominations be printed in the record, and the President be immediately notified of the Senate's action.
Without objection.
Mr. President, I express my appreciation to Senator Sanders, Senator Leahy, my longtime friend and former employee in the Department of Justice, Ron Weich, and the Attorney General, and others for working to help us get through this stalemate that we were involved in. I ask unanimous consent that the Health Committee be discharged from the following nomination. No, there's two of them, nominations. 678 Public Health Service nominations, beginning with presidential nominations 678, Public Health Service nominations beginning with Mary J.W. Choi, C-H-O-I, and ending with Christopher P. Morris. That the nomination be placed on the executive calendar. The nomination be confirmed en bloc. Motion to reconsider be considered made and laid on the table. There be no intervening action or debate, and that no further motion be in order to any of the nominations. These statements related to the nominations be printed in the record, and the President be immediately notified of the Senate's action.
Without objection.
I ask unanimous consent that the Environment and Public Works Committee be discharged from further consideration of the following nominations. Presidential nomination 341, Major General Michael J. Walsh, United States Army, to be a member of the member and President of the Mississippi River Commission. Presidential nomination number 342, Rear Admiral Jonathan W. Bailey, to be a member of the Mississippi River Commission. That the nomination be placed on the executive calendar. That the nominations be confirmed en bloc. Motion to reconsider be considered made and laid on the table with no intervening action or debate, and no further motion be in order to any of the nominations. And any statements related to the nominations be printed in the record. The President be immediately notified of the Senate's action. The Senate then resume legislative session.
Without objection.
Morning hour, morning is to be extended for another hour. For debate only, Senators be allowed to speak for 10 minutes each during that period of time.
Without objection.
Consider calendar number 79. The nomination be confirmed, and any statements related to the nomination be printed in the record. The President be immediately notified of since action. The Senate then resume legislative session.
Without objection.
The chair approved my consent agreement about morning business extending for an hour. Is that right?
Yes.
Note the absence of quorum.
Clerk will call the roll.
Mr. Akaka.
We are.
We are?
Yes, sir.
I guess what's new? Mr. President, I would ask unanimous consent the quorum call be terminated.
Is there any objection? Hearing none, without objection.
I ask consent the Judiciary Committee be discharged from further consideration and the Senate proceed as Res 165.
Clerk will report.
SRES 165, designating July 23, 2011 as National Day of the American Cowboy.
Without objection, the committee is discharged and seat will proceed to immediate action.
I ask unanimous consent the resolution be agreed to, the preamble be agreed to, the motion reconsider be laid on the table.
Without objection.
I ask unanimous consent the Commerce Committee be discharged from further consideration and the Senate proceed as Res 170.
Clerk will report.
SRES 170, honoring Admiral Thad Allen of the United States Coast Guard, retired, for his lifetime of selfless commitment and exemplary service to the United States.
Without objection, the committee is discharged and the Senate will proceed to the measure.
I ask unanimous consent the resolution be agreed to, the preamble be agreed to, the motion reconsider be laid on the table.
Without objection.
I ask consent the Senate now proceed as Res 224.
Clerk will report.
SRES 224, congratulating the Soil Science Society of America on its 75th anniversary.
Without any further objection, the Senate will proceed to the matter.
I ask unanimous consent the resolution be agreed to, the preamble be agreed to, the motion reconsider be laid on the table.
Without objection.
I ask unanimous consent the Senate proceed to SRES 225.
The clerk will report.
SRES 225, congratulating the University of South Carolina baseball team for its gritty and record-breaking pursuit of back-to-back National Collegiate Athletic Association Division I baseball national championships.
Without objection, the Senate will proceed to the measure.
As unanimous consent the resolution be agreed to, the preamble be agreed to, the motion reconsider be laid on the table.
Without objection.
Note the absent quorum.
Clerk will call the roll.
Mr. Akaka.
That's called upon to be terminated.
Without objection.
I ask unanimous consent the following bills which are at the desk be considered to have been read twice, unblocked, and placed on the calendar. S. 1317 from Senator Mint. S. 1323 from Senator Reed of Nevada.
Without objection.
Note the absent quorum.
Clerk will call the roll.
Mr. Akaka.
Without objection, the clerk will report.
I have a cloture motion at the desk following the report.
Calendar number 88, SJ Res 20, authorizing the limited use of the United States Armed Forces in support of the NATO mission in Libya.
Would the clerk report my cloture motion, please?
Motion to proceed.
Clerk will report the cloture motion.
Cloture motion. We, the undersigned senators, in accordance with the provisions of Rule 22 of the Standing Rules of the Senate, hereby move to bring to a close the debate on the motion to proceed to calendar number 88, SJ Res 20, a joint resolution authorizing the limited use of the United States Armed Forces in support of the NATO mission in Libya. Signed by 17 senators as follows.
Mr. President, I ask consent the names not be read.
Without objection.
I ask unanimous consent that the vote on the motion to invoke cloture occur at 5 p.m. on Tuesday, July 5th, and the mandatory quorum under Rule 22 be waived.
Without objection.
I ask unanimous consent that when the Senate completes its business day, it adjourn until 11 a.m. on Friday, July 1st for a pro forma session only, with no business conducted. When the Senate adjourns on Friday, July 1st, it stand adjourned until 2 p.m. on Tuesday, July 5th. Following the prayer and pledge, journal proceedings be approved to date. Morning hour be deemed expired, and the time for the two leaders be reserved for the use later in the day. Following any leader remarks, the Senate resume consideration of the motion to proceed to calendar number 88.
Without objection.
The first vote will occur then next Tuesday, July 5th at 5 p.m. on cloture on the motion to proceed SJ Res 20. Vote will run longer than usual to accommodate senators returning after the Independence Day holiday. There's no further business to come before the Senate. I ask we adjourn under the previous order.
Senate stands adjourned until 11 a.m. tomorrow.
Today, the Senate unanimously approved the nomination of